Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Christelle Francois, Vice President of Government Affairs and Strategic Partnerships at Skills for Change. Skills for Change pioneers programs that respond to shifting immigration and workplace trends. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Christelle Francois, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
You know, you have an unbelievable background in helping other people. And it's led to, let's just bring this award up now, you being recognized as one of the 100 most influential Black Canadians. I mean, what leads to that? What brings you to that pivotal moment? And maybe how did you get started on that path?
Wow. First off, thank you so much for that. Listen, getting that recognition was extremely touching and humbling for me. I've been just doing a lot of this work, working towards supporting my community, and it always feels great to be recognized for your work. But for me, my career and my work towards this really started a long time ago. I think truly like starting with my family and what we really valued in terms of always giving back. And so for me professionally, I joined a board very young. I was probably still in university. And that experience gave me the opportunity. It was an organization called Apathy is Boring, that's still around. And they're a nonprofit really focused on getting youth to be more socially and politically engaged. And it really started from there, that awareness, and really just moving along my career to always creating these opportunities in terms of how can I give back. And then from then on, I was able to participate in other organizations, increase those experiences to creating policy recommendations for our federal government. And so it really evolved from really just door-to-door type of volunteering to then a more sophisticated approach in terms of how I felt that I could really have solid impact.
And when I look at it, one, it's an amazing thread to have through your career. And I love the note of earned apathy. And to us, one of the things we talk about is audacity. And that if we don't believe in ourselves and if we don't believe that we can make a difference, it's going to be really hard, to get up in the morning and do anything.
100%.
One of the things that I saw that was really interesting, the table of impact investment practitioners.
Yes.
How does that play a role? Because to me, when I read it, at least, it was a bridge from, okay, let's be audacious, let's help people, but let's get behind it with the capacity or ability to bring things to market. Am I reading that right?
Yes, essentially the table of, impact investment practitioners is really comprised of a collective of different individuals that are part of impact investment groups. And so we represent, our members, and it's really around promoting social finance and how do you have people that are from these communities to create these economic opportunities. And so we have representatives from across the country, part of different impact funds, and it's really about creating those opportunities to then invest in some of these companies or initiatives. But we really have come together to how can we move this forward collectively. And so it's a great organization that's really dedicated to advancing the social finance initiatives across Canada.
And so what is, just for our listeners, what is social finance as opposed to finance?
Great question. So social finance is really around, oftentimes when you're just looking at corporate business, your main metrics of performance is around profitability. And so social finance takes into consideration other elements that create, whether something is performing well or not. And so, for example, in social finance, you're also looking at, okay, Are we looking at different parameters to provide capital? Is this a business or an organization that's providing a specific social service? Where it's not just about profitability, it's about impact as well. And so social finance merges these two ideologies to create kind of economic opportunities specifically for marginalized groups, or for subgroups that are often left outside of the margins of typical economic growth opportunities. So and we're seeing that more, it's a more prevalent kind of hot topic these days, but I think it's quite significant. And when you think about some of the leaders who have propelled social finance, thinking about Muhammad Yunus in India and all of this stuff, it's quite remarkable. And in Canada, it's been nice to see the progression for Indigenous communities, right? With Raven, Indigenous Capital, or you look at Black in economic groups that have launched, financial capital access. There's Windmill that provides lending to new immigrants. And so all these different entities are considered social finance.
Now, it strikes me, one, that the investor has to be truly open-minded and driven in a very different way. Because, I mean, traditional finance is you put your dollars in, you get your money back in 2 to 3 years or 5 years, X%
That's right.
return. Blah, 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 you know the drill.
Yep.
Here you are you getting a financial return? Is it truly the impact on society? How do you get back what you put in?
Yes, absolutely. So, at TIP, which is the Table of Impact Investment Practitioners, we support these entities and these groups. But if you're looking at a specific fund that does this type of work, it isn't solely just about the impact. The monetary aspect is definitely, if you're issuing a loan, you still want to make sure that there are no defaults and that you're getting that money back, and there is interest, on that. So definitely the monetary piece is a part of the game. It's not just a freebie, right? But it's just opening up the pool so that more people can have access to capital that are outside of traditional ways. So the revenue aspect is definitely still a part of it. It's just there's other metrics that's also considered as success, which is impact. Maybe sometimes you can stretch out the term of the loan. Maybe the pre-qualification elements are a little bit different. And oftentimes, because you have people that are specialized in some of these communities, they can sometimes identify opportunities that can have the opportunity to be quite expansive and explosive, that other groups may not have recognized, right? Just because they know that specific niche market.
It sounds not changing, but life altering to me. Yeah, I mean, when I listened to it, I mean, I was fortunate. I was born in Canada, and Canadian education had the opportunity to access capital with the traditional pains of entrepreneurship. But for those who can't, or for those who are new to the country, who are simply brilliant, motivated, driven people with a great idea, historically, they really would have not moved to square one, would they?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And that's why these groups exist today. It's to help folks who are looking to be self-sufficient and have just that opportunity to a new beginning. So we're just there to plant the seed.
Well, speaking of new beginnings, you've recently become Vice President of Government Affairs and Strategic Partnership at Skills for Change.
Yes.
Programs that respond to shifting immigration and workplace trends. And there's a lot of shift.
Yes.
So tell us about Skills for Change and some of the things that you're doing with them now.
Yes, Skills for Change, amazing organization. So they've been around for 40 years, based in Toronto, servicing the Toronto and GTA area, and really focused on serving racialized communities, refugees, and newcomers to Canada, and providing that workforce integration. But also, what's great about Skills for Change, and one of the things that really appealed to me, is that they really provide a 360 approach to servicing all the clients and the people that walk through the doors. And so when I say 360, It's not just career training, it's mental health support. It's making sure that they have additional resources that enable them to really thrive in this country. And so that's what Skills for Change is about. And so me joining the organization is something that I'm super excited about, especially given that we know the Canadian climate now, knowing that Canada has a commitment on a federal level to make sure that we have, I believe, over 400 to 500,000 new immigrants every year. And so what does that look like? And what Skills for Change has been doing this work for so long. And so I'm really excited to help, expand the organization to a national scope. And so that's part of my mandate being there, and also really making sure that people can recognize the excellent work that the organization has been doing, and finding the right partners that enable us to amplify what we're doing and further expand our services to newcomers, refugees, and racialized communities across Canada.
So when you say that, on a crunchy level, if you will,
yes,
what happens? What happens when I interact with Skills for Change if I am new to Canada or if I'm part of an underserved population? What is that experience?
Excellent question. So one of the first things is you'll meet, let's say you seek to engage with Skills for Change. Someone will meet with you, do an assessment, and really help determine what are your core needs. Is it housing? Do you need access to food? Health? Mental health? Are you part of the LGBTQ community where you feel even more ostracized if you're coming from a specific country that may have a zero tolerance when it comes to that? So we look at all these different elements of someone's profile, and then based on that, we create specific pathways for them through the organization and the different programs that we run. Some people are seeking to learn English. We also have a daycare on site at our office, so people who are taking courses can leave their children as well in a safe space to be taken care of. So after we've done that full assessment, we'll then create that pathway for you and then provide you with those resources. And if there are specific resources that we can't directly offer, we then provide you those referrals and recommendations in terms of where else that you can go and get that. But for the most part, because of how robust our organization is, we really have these, training, career development, helping you get your equivalencies, doing your health assessment, like all of that is part of our work.
And you mentioned something that I think it's been part of the conversation for as long as I can remember, and it just seems to go on, and equivalencies, internationally educated professionals who come here and cannot achieve what they were educated to or what they practice in other countries. And sure, I understand you've got to, verify, how to make sure this goes, but is that being elevated? Is that being acted on now? Or are we still just talking a lot?
There's still that's an excellent question, Ken. Honestly, there's still a lot of conversation around it, especially when we're looking at our, I think one of the hottest topics is our health system, right? We see the challenges that we're facing. We know that we need more resources and staff and capacity to support with that, but it's still in conversation mode. I think there's been a little bit of advancements specifically around doctors, because Canada desperately needs more doctors to support. So there are additional conversations. I see that specific conversation accelerating a little bit more, like what do these equivalencies look like? And is there a different journey or pathway that can be implemented to help accelerate that process? But I have the same sentiment. We're still in kind of conversation mode, but I do think some of these things will accelerate just given the demand and needs of our country. I mean, at the end of the day, we need labor, we need skills. And if people have this, like, let's try and expedite some of these equivalencies.
I wish you the best for that, because and I hope somebody gives you a megaphone. Again, I completely understand the notion of equivalencies and ensuring that people meet our requirements and standards. But we have a lot of needs, and ostensibly we have a lot of brilliant people who are moving here. So
agreed. Agreed.
You also founded a company called Untold and Co.
Yes.
Um, what is Untold and Co?
Yes. So Untold and Co. agency is essentially a consulting firm where we work with organizations and businesses and help them with their public relations strategies. It's a fully kind of 360 integrated approach. We also do crisis management, marketing, and those are really the core three pillars of our services. And it's all around digital marketing, PR, and crisis management.
And some of your clients, I mean, I saw the Michael Jean Foundation. I mean,
Yes.
fascinating. So do you work with what I'll call the traditional packaged goods, or are you looking at things like that foundation or foundations like that that have the same type of impact that run through your career path?
Yes, so I definitely look at organizations or companies that have a social purpose. That's definitely the alignment there with the agency, and it's looking at whether it's a business, whether it's an organization, is there a social purpose to the work that they're doing? Because I think that's the best way that our agency is able to service them. And so I have a team that works with me, and so working with the Michael Jean Foundation, working with other businesses, even chefs that we work with. How do we expand their brand and reputation and things like that? So the social purpose is really like the key thread, because that's in alignment with my just personal core values and beliefs and what I do through my professional work. So it just aligns for my businesses as well. And to be honest, I think in the future, if you don't have a social purpose, I think those will be the oddballs out. That is my prediction.
Well, I like that. I mean, I think it's important. I mean, the funny thing, I mean, SpyderWorks powers say Heart of the Future, but this is our for-profit social activation. And
Yes.
I completely believe in what you're saying. And it's funny, I mean, I've been working for a few years. And when I graduated, when I came out of my undergrad, I mean, everything was a profit motive.
Yes.
And today, I'm not saying it's not a profit motive, but there is that integration and of impact,
Yes.
as we talked about before. So I think that's an important lesson or note for anybody, any of our listeners today.
Mhm.
That profit and purpose really are inextricably linked going forward.
Yes, absolutely. That I fully agree with that.
One of the areas that I think you speak to are Black professionals, or as Black professionals in tech.
Yes.
And tell us about that and why tech specifically.
Yes, so Black professionals in tech, BPTN, great organization. They provide access to Black individuals who are in tech or who want to get into the tech space to get the necessary training, but also get the opportunity to get jobs through the platform that they have, Opcity. And then they also have annual conferences every year around this topic. And so the reason why, that specific niche around Black professionals in tech is that we know that technology is the present, but more importantly, it's the future, right? And so how do we make sure that Black communities are not left out of this future trend in terms of skill set development, which leads to economic opportunity and growth and development, so that we don't have waves of communities that are left behind through this digital transformation that's happening, right? And so that's really kind of the ethos around BPTN, is just making sure that these skills are being learned and developed, and that they're also being transferred over for these professionals to get opportunities to secure employment and jobs. And then the other piece is when we think about AI, this is your lane. When we think about AI, we've seen sometimes with technology, when you don't have diverse perspectives in the rooms in terms of from the developers, things get missed, right? Things get missed because you're not able to think about full populations and considering all the different elements. And if we're developing AI for the world, then you have to include everyone. And so it's also making sure that you have developers that are part of that. And, sometimes I often think about the self-driving cars when they were doing the testing and then realized the self-driving cars cannot detect Black people that are walking, right? And so they had to go back and kind of make some of that. So it's also kind of that equity piece as well, because AI is a part of our lives right now. And let's just make sure that as it's being developed, we're including as many voices as possible in this technology.
Well, no, I love hearing that. And it's very similar to, we had a guest and we had a speaker out of Columbus, Ohio, who was on our stage at our activation at Say Hi Columbus.
Okay.
Doug McCullough, who's Chief Technology Officer from the Midwest. And he started Color Coded Labs. And that was to help teach underserved, but mostly African-American individuals about technology to prepare them for a life in tech. Wow. And what he said was, I mean, having been a CTO or a chief information officer for some, major organizations, he said, we just don't have enough coders.
Yeah.
Full stop. And we have these individuals who, again, as we spoke to before, very bright, have great careers. They just need to get on that path. And he's done an unbelievable job of starting to educate them for jobs in technology.
Wow.
And what has become great careers. So is that something that, does that resonate in Canada? Is that something that is being done here?
Yes, it does. I mean, that mindset and ideology completely resonates, I think, with the Canadian landscape, and it's happening with organizations such as BPTN is one of them that does that. I think there's another organization that focuses more on youth called TechSpark. They're also based in Toronto. So and there's even ones where they're targeting younger children. It's called Black Boys Code, and so they work with I think kids between 7 and 13 or something like that. To plant the seed quite early. So I think it's still relatively similar. I know that the percentage of Black professionals in the tech space in Canada is also relatively low. And so that's why I think these initiatives exist, to make sure that we can help fulfill that pipeline. Because I think developers, just developers itself, we are kind of behind. We need more, and that's why we're attracting that. And so yeah, whether they're Black or not, but just Black people are just lower percentage, but we need developers, period.
Well, it's amazing, and it goes back to our earlier thread. I mean, we need to empower newcomers, underserved, diverse communities, because we have incredibly critical needs, not just in Canada, but worldwide.
Exactly. Exactly.
A lot of us are getting older. A lot of us are getting closer to retirement, and there simply are fewer next geners out there. So to me, yes, it's amazing to promote diversity, but it's also, we have these needs.
We have these needs. Exactly.
Why wouldn't we engage everyone that wants to step up? So exactly. You know what, I think what you're doing is wonderful. I think the thread that runs through what you've done is incredible. So I thank you so much for your time today and sharing all the ways that we can engage and help and support underserved newcomers, et cetera, in Canada and beyond. As our time starts to come to an end today, though, I want to ask about one more organization that you're engaged with, and that's the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And how does that distinguish? I mean, obviously a regional chamber of commerce is about a region, but is this across Canada? Does it have some goals that might be a little different from your traditional chamber of commerce that the business community can be engaging with or supporting?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for having me today. This has been such a fruitful conversation. But yes, to answer your question, the Chamber is national. They have chapters across the country, and it's really creating this economic hub for Black businesses to connect with each other, but more important, have access to resources that help them grow their network, their businesses. The Chamber also works in proximity with the government to also help where there's procurement opportunities, how do we then funnel and make sure that it's just making sure that these entrepreneurs have access to a lot of different information that's not as, widely promoted, and just creating these economic opportunities and support for Black entrepreneurs across Canada.
Very good. And what, I said that would be the last question, but that follow on. How do you measure success in this? Like, what are those, again, I keep using the word crunchy, but what are those crunchy goals? Because there's so much conversation, as we said before.
Yes.
How do we make all of this stick and really change people's lives?
Absolutely. Do you mean specifically about the chamber, or just in
general? I mean, the chamber is a great place to start, but just in general, how do we know that we've moved 10 or 1 million lives?
Great question. I mean, I think in terms from a data perspective, I think it's about making sure that we're beginning to capture a lot of the data now and conducting these studies, measuring where people are at, what are the economic changes or financial gains that we're seeing, where are people positioned, where in the country, and capturing a lot of that data now to conduct true analysis in the coming years for us to be able to look back, whether it's 5 years, 10 years from now, and really see the evolution of what has happened and what has taken place. I think it feels like we're at a critical time in history, and I think it always feels that way. But now specifically with us seeing the recession and all of that, things will pick up again. But I think it's just a great time for us to look at this data and measure it by looking at the growth, how people have pivoted, and maybe also we'll come to the conclusion that some of the areas that we focused on, were they impactful? Maybe not. But I think it's about having this openness and making sure that we're tracking the data now to position us for better analysis later.
Sounds great. And Christelle, we love to check back with our guests over time.
Wonderful. Yes.
I would love to pick up the conversation again. I would love to hear about the progress, because
my pleasure.
There's a lot of brilliant people out there that are just looking for that first step. So thank you again, and thank you for being part of the change.
Thank you so much. And thank you for creating this amazing platform for have such a wide range of conversations and just shedding light on different people working in these different spaces. So thank you, Ken.
Take care.
Take care.